Hey there, Parz from Drawing Expressions. Welcome to the volume 2 of the compilation of the Apothecary episodes that I've been doing. This takes us through weeks 4 and 5, 2 episodes each, so 4 in total, about an hour and a half's listening time. I hope you will enjoy it, and then I'll see you at the end. Enjoy. Episode 7. Spring, Week 4, Cure episode. Don't interrupt necromancers. I've gotten into the habit of taking a bit of time daily to sit quietly in the cottage and look up at the spirit house I built. And improved. It no longer resembles a lean-to. I won't say it's a proper house, but I'm happy to call what it is currently a house. Or at least resembles a house. Whatever, it's good enough for now. As to why I do this, it's partly because it feels right and respectful. After 3 weeks of banging around, not really knowing what I was doing, but insisting I did know, to the point of nearly dismissing Mouse Eye, I felt a need to reset a bit. The last few days were a good start, and I'm hoping to continue. Another reason is I keep wondering if another letter, maybe from my new bestie Pip, who I'll probably never meet, or maybe from someone else, might arrive at any time. I've never been one for friendships, but for the life of me, I don't understand why I'm so fixated on watching the mail portal. Maybe I'm waiting to see what happens if someone sends something really big. As I sit, my mind does love to wander. Endless speculating, like that idea of a big letter trying to squeeze out from behind my spirit house. But another topic that I've begun to ruminate on is the ramifications of not being able to treat someone or of having them leaving dissatisfied because I wasn't able to effect a cure or do so quickly enough. To be honest, I've been harboring these thoughts for a little while. Private speculation, but today I saw Mouse Eye was awake and around, so I asked. He twitched his whiskers. It's so cute when he does that. Then shrugged. I know there's a doctor of sorts in High Rannoch. I guess they'd go to him. Of sorts? He shrugged again. I stopped myself from asking why he gave a qualified answer. If Mouse Eye wanted to share, he would. So I internally shrugged back and hit on another topic. There's no doubt there's an underlying spirit or wisdom existing on the grounds, or in the grounds. The wild rose recovering nearly instantly from being trampled, the bees so quickly becoming part of the property, maybe even my ability as an untrained novice to not only recognize but safely collect reagents and then brew them into potions that are effective. Imagine someone using pine bark and bat guano to create a potion that would decrease flatulence. But that's how I feel. Yes, I have the book, and something definitely happened when I read it. A knowledge transference of sorts. Is the old witch somehow still here? Here yet not here? Here inside me? I can't say I'm comfortable at all with that thought. However, I don't feel like there's someone inside me or with me. I feel like my thoughts are mine and not someone else's. But definitely something to keep in mind. Not everything is as it seems. The rest of the day progressed normally. Cooking, cleaning, reading the book, and trying to teach myself about places I haven't been to yet. All the chores that keep a place organized and functioning well. And then, tired, I went to bed. Only to be woken by Mouse Eye with a cryptic message. Someone needing your help is coming. It took me a second to react, but I did shake off the cobwebs, got dressed, and just started stoking the fire when a wild-eyed man pounded on my door. As I opened it, he fell forward into my living space, all the while looking over his shoulder like he was being chased. His hoarse screams, or more like a rough, breathy, very muted pseudo-screams, were just creepy. What had he seen that had induced such fear and panic? That thought was interrupted by his vomiting onto my floor. Had it been a normal spilling of stomach yuck, that would have been one thing. But when the vomit, instead of simply launching from mouth to floor, formed itself into a little dancing figure that then ran out my door into the night, that was something else. If only it hadn't left little vomit footprints on my formerly clean floor. Anyway, out the door the vomit man went. I stood bemused, and the horseman hoarsely screamed again and tried to hide under my bed. Clearly, I needed more light. Maybe that'd stop the fear reaction. Maybe? A few minutes later, the fire was high enough to provide decent light. The intermittent screaming hadn't stopped, nor had the intermittent vomiting. He'd let loose twice more. One had become a small four-legged creature and hid in my cauldron. Ew. And the other had squeezed under my bed and, I swear this is true, was making faces at the man. With the light up, I could see the panicked white of his eyes, his vivid green skin, and incredibly white hair, which didn't make sense. His body hair, eyebrows, arm hair, facial hair, shadow, were all black. Something had scared him half to death, which helped explain the screaming. But green skin? Vomiting magical vomit? Not a fear reaction. That was more like a poisoning. Dealing with the poisoning was the priority. Without prompt treatment, things could become complicated. Who knows what it was that someone had brewed or that he'd eaten or whatever and what could result. But there was no doubt, what with the animated vomitus, that he'd been poisoned and it had a magical element. As another vomit creature ran across the floor, I bent down and tried to let my patient know I was going to gather reagents to deal with the poisoning and that we'd tackle the fear reaction next. Maybe dealing with the poison would deal with the other as well. I was hoping. I gathered up my stuff and headed off. At night. To Heroes Hollow. Oh man. Yep, my favorite place in the whole world, and I get to go there in the dark. I tried to be brave. I tried to look up at the stars, and I tried to believe they would look out for me. I tried to remember that the spirit of the cottage hadn't steered me wrong yet, even when I was out of line, and I knew Mouse Eye would be with me and do what he could to keep me safe. Despite all my worry, all my alerting to every shriek and call and snap and more, the thousand sounds the wilderness makes at night, I got to the dungeon safely. The hardest part of the night so far, getting to the hollow, was past. Now to navigate the now hardest part, the dungeon itself. One more round of thoughts towards asking for help and guidance from the cottage, the stars, Mouse Eye, whomever was bothering to listen, and then I entered. The good part about going to the hollow at night is that your eyes don't need to adjust. You go from outdoor dark to indoor dark, which is a different quality of dark, the indoor one being more complete, but dark to dark is fairly easy. I relaxed and made my way into the dungeon. I knew I had to work quickly, so I made my way to where I hoped I could find cold rust. It's a blue rust that feeds on magical artifacts. I was hoping I could find that type of thing in the armory spaces. A rusty magical weapon would be perfect for my uses. As I walked quickly, I started to hear other footsteps. They weren't my steps echoing along corridors. It sounded like a small army. But an army in thick socks. The chest. I spotted it as it turned a corner and ran towards me. It was a happy run, an eager run, a run that hoped I had a treat in my pocket. Feeling far more confident that I had a right to, I patted my pocket and felt a treat there. Thank you, Mouse Eye. I didn't say it aloud, but I heard him from close by. You're welcome. I gave the treat. It seemed happy, so I took an extra minute to give it some pets and scrunches. I think it purred, so I told it I was here to gather some things and asked if it wanted to help. I think it yapped happily. So we all headed for the armory, where we did indeed find cold rust. One down. Next up was Flood Bulb. There are two places where you can generally find it, traps that are based on water, and in canteens. Nothing stores water more efficiently. And so despite asking the chest for help and prepared to go wherever it led, I expected we'd go to the kitchens. And we did. It did require some gentle handling. You absolutely don't want a bulb to burst in your pack. As we were leaving the kitchens and heading through the cafeteria/mess hall, I spotted another lucky find. Ghost goo. Apparently a ghost was spending a lot of time in and around where everyone ate. Maybe it was the ghost of one of the only people ever to have lived that liked mass-produced food. A slop-loving memory? Anyway, for whatever reason, a ghost was leaving bits of goo all over the tables, and so I grabbed it gratefully. We headed back to the dungeon entrance, the chest padding along with Mouse Eye and I. One more set of scrunches and I was heading back to the cottage. Oh, the reek as I approached. I almost wished it smelled like bog goblin again. Vomit people ran out to meet me. Vomit creatures were running amok in the cottage. It was nasty. Pandemonium. Unbearable. Sir, you have to get your vomit under control. I can't brew in these conditions. He pointed out the door, did another hoarse scream, and out they went. I mopped up the necessary equipment and started prepping. I tossed the cold rust and flood bulb into the mortar and started working them. The water that flooded out of the bulb was more than plenty for my potion. The water that flowed onto my floor would help me clean it later. My patient drank the offered cup. His skin seemed to lighten slightly from a deep green to a more faded one, and thankfully he stopped vomiting. As a side note, I think the vomit people found an abandoned gopher tunnel system. I wish them the best. Anyway, with that crisis dealt with, it was time to deal with the root cause of all this. The potion, thankfully, gave my patient enough voice back that, while difficult to understand, was in the end understandable. Not that what he told me was at all sensical. While the number of shrieks decreased and the vomiting stopped, the few words he was able to utter between his screams said only something about a necromancer. Right. So, someone in the local area is doing magic and working with death. Okay, it's easy to see how seeing something, especially if you're unprepared to see something, could give you a terrible fright. And the funny, strange, not haha, bit is that the reagents I need to deal with this are in Heroes Hollow. Oh yay, another trip to that warm and fuzzy place, and have to do with necromancy, vampire venom, and skeleton dust. Or maybe I could simply brew something up involving pine bark and bat guano. Tempting, but no. As I got ready to head out again, I kept an eye on my patient. Still wild-eyed frightened? Yep. Still intermittently screaming? Yep. But for now, anyway, not giving the appearance of being ready to bolt out the door. Sir, it's going to take me a bit of time to address your fright. Please know you are safe here. There's plenty of wood to keep the fire going, keep the cottage warm, and provide lots of light. When I get back, we'll have you feeling calmer, okay? I got a nod. Good enough. And off I went. The sun was just rising. The last bits of low-lying mist were just starting to burn off, revealing dew-draped undergrowth. The land looked magical. I must admit my thoughts drifted to the whole concept of magic. I suppose, for example, the work I do could be seen by some as magic despite my not adding any sort of supernatural anything to my potions. If reagents carry power, then I'll happily use that power, but as far as waving a magic wand over a bubbling cauldron to create some sort of malevolent miasma that would swallow High Ronok, just wasn't in the cards. Same with a healing vapor that nightly would take away people's hurts, wounds, even nightmares. Imagine that. A vapor that would help people feel better and healthier. I wondered if something like that could be created. Interesting, but feels more like magical meddling than healing people who ask for help with bespoke potions. Before I knew it, I was back at the Hollows. Now to work through the new challenge of collecting harder reagents. Time to find some vampires. Ugh. Which meant exploring deeper into the dungeon. I made my way deeper in than I'd gone before. I half hoped the walking chest would show up. That would have been comforting. Maybe if I asked, Mouse Eye? I tried to keep the quaver from my voice. You wouldn't happen to know where a vampire is, would you? I love it when he's so forthcoming, in a dark, scary, and frankly horrible place. Are we going the right way? Both good and bad news in my book, both involving getting closer and closer to a vampire. I asked Mouse Eye to keep me on track, and that track felt darker, more musty, and quite dank. Why can't I spend more time in more pleasant places? Glimmerwood Grove is so lovely. The trees, the wildflowers, the... Greetings, mistress. The voice scared the bejeebers out of me. It was behind me, which how in the world did anyone get behind me? But at the same time, the voice was quite calm, almost welcoming. I froze, closed my eyes tightly, somehow that was supposed to bolster my non-existent courage, and turned around slowly. Standing there was a figure. The lack of light made seeing details like the person's face difficult, but the bearing seemed okay. I think a smile was on their face, and I say there because the voice gave nothing away about its sex. All I was getting was polite, patient curiosity. I figured I needed to respond at some point. Hi. Greetings again, mistress. If I may observe, you appear less lost than uncertain. May I help you in some way? Sure. Why not? What could go wrong? Even if Mouse Eye isn't visible, I know he's close. Yes, yes. They didn't react at all to my list slip. I'm looking for a vampire. That caused, I think, eyebrows to rise. It's not common that someone seeks out a vampire. May I inquire your reasons for doing so? I saw no harm in saying I needed a vampire's venom. Ah, so you are a witch then. Excellent. Follow me, please. We walked down another corridor. I'm not sure if I would have spotted it on my own, and arrived at a small room. It had a small table with a couple of chairs in it, a candle that provided a bit of light, and an open book lay in front. Please excuse the mess. Master and I don't get many visitors. Have a seat. I sat down slowly, maybe even warily. Master? I don't mean to be rude, but who is your master? The figure came into the candlelight. Note to self, if my patient saw this person unexpectedly, that could explain their fright. While some features spoke to good-natured friendliness, like the shy smile and the gentle eyes, others were less so. The massive scars and stitching all about their face and head, the third arm sticking out from their chest, and the small knife in that hand. My eyes glued onto it. He looked down. Oh, my apologies. I feel most comfortable with a scalpel in my hand. This one, however, isn't for surgery. It's my dip pen. He set it down on the table, then he sat in the other chair. It felt menacing, but he seemed to be ignoring it. My master is a vampire. He's currently sleeping. It's been a busy night, and of course, it's now day. So, what is it you need venom for? I told him, definitely a him, about my patient. The scarred man laughed. I think it was good-natured. Sorry, but you must see the humor here. Your patient came down last night. He wanted a reanimated skeleton for some reason. Scared my master more terribly. He just popped out of nowhere, interrupted a delicate piece of magical work, which caused a rather dramatic mess, I'm telling you, and that scared all of us. Master had to scramble to keep the world from imploding. The man fled into my laboratory, and I had to run after him. Master, of course, would want him punished, so I got him to drink a potion that would eventually turn him into a zombie. Temporarily, of course. Anyway, Master called for me, so I had to leave the man to his own devices. Apparently, he ran to you, and now you wish to cure him. Gulp. I hope that's okay with you. Oh, certainly. I bear him no ill will, and like I said, Master only wanted him punished for a little while. Let's see. For a fright, you'll also want skeleton dust, correct? I could only nod. Wonderful. Let me take you to where you can wait. It's the library, of sorts. I think you'll find things of interest there. The library turned out to be quite the space. The room was big and airy, bookshelves lined the walls, and a ready supply of candles meant it would be easy to browse the volumes. As I started to look around, the scarred servant asked, What happened to the old witch? Do you know? No, sorry, I just moved in recently. All there was about her whereabouts was a few lines in a book that she'd written and had open. It said that if I was reading it, she must be either missing or dead. Pity. Master quite liked her. Oh well. And with that, he was off. and I can't say that I paid much attention to his leaving. The books were drawing my attention. The range of topics was so diverse. How to reanimate anything from an ant to a dragon and all manner of creatures in between, getting answers to questions by calling on the spirits of the dead, creating loyal servants through the use of potions, and more. Creating loyal servants? Using potions? Note to self, politely decline any and all offers of beverages. I don't know how long I'd been in there. I was just transfixed. This place was amazing, so full of secrets, knowledge, ancient wisdom. And then I discovered a letter tucked in an unassuming spot between two large volumes detailing the life and times of assorted necromancers from the distant past. It wasn't sealed or anything, so I opened it. I couldn't help but notice that the handwriting was familiar. Very familiar. It was the same as in my book. The old witch had written it. I sat down and read the whole thing. The salutation read, "My dearest Count." The letter itself was a goodbye. That she was going to be heading for some place called the Imperial City, and that trip was bound to be long, dangerous, but entirely necessary. For reasons we've discussed at length and don't bear repeating again. But it was also an invitation that the Count should go to her before she left in the morning. She promised a delightful night by way of goodbye, but that she also understood that accepting that invitation could be too much to ask for. And something about her ambivalence about traveling with Humphrey. I gathered Humphrey was a pet cow. Huh, a cow as a pet. That was weird. Ah, I see you found her letter. I felt blurry, fuzzy, just deep into all this reading, unnaturally muddled. The old witch would visit the hollow routinely, found all sorts of excuses to stay. One time to give booties to the mimic, another time to recycle metal in the old prison block. Always visiting, always hoping the master would notice her. I just nodded while fighting off the cog fog. And did he notice her? The scarred servant looked pained. Yes, she was a terrible distraction. I feared he'd stop her from leaving or, worse, go with her. So I hid that letter. He thinks she abandoned him. Got him good and angry, focused, and he very nearly completed his experiment last night. I was recovering, and nearly imploded the world. He shrugged. There are risks to what he does. Then he added, if it makes you feel any better, you'd never know that it happened. 1 second okay, the next second gone. Uh-huh. Don't argue with the servant of a necromancer. Get what you came for and get out. Do you have the reagents you went to get for me? Don't you want to stay and read some more? The master was looking forward to talking to you. I'm brewing up a lovely tea. Politely decline. Oh, no, thank you. I really need to get back. How long have I been in here? Oh, not long. Oh, well, maybe I could... Which is when I spotted Mouse Eye sitting on a shelf behind the scarred servant, gesticulating, and loudly gesticulating if gestures could make noise, that I should leave. Just take the reagents from you with gratitude and then head back. He paused for a second, then, the Igor Code requires that I uphold an unsolicited offer, but please promise that you'll pay us a visit some other day. I said I would. Mouse Eye grimaced, but that seemed to be the only way to get my reagents and leave without further incident. As we made our way back, I asked Mouse Eye about his reaction. It's okay. You promised to visit both Igor and the vampire, which means it'll have to be at night, when the Count's awake. But we can prepare adequately and keep you safe. But I thought it'd be okay. The old witch may or may not have been manipulated. But the fact that she left of her own accord means she either wasn't magicked or she figured a way out of it. Anyway, it'll be fine. The comforting part of his message was dispelled with his mumbled, I hope. Great. Well, time to worry about that later. I had a panicked patient, probably impatient, waiting. To his credit, he was still waiting at the cottage. White knuckles gripped the table, Feet tapped, knees bounced, white hair practically frizzled with electricity. If I didn't know better, it looked like he'd eaten a lot of laxative and was about to lose his battle with the call of nature. Actually, I didn't know better, so I hoped I wouldn't be cleaning up more than sticky vomit prints. It took no time at all to crush the skeleton bone into dust and sprinkle it onto the venom in the bottom of a cup. He drank it down willingly. Within a couple of minutes, the knuckles turned a calmer pink, the feet and knees stopped their incessant movement, his eyes lost their wildness, and his head began to slump onto his chest. And seconds later, he was snoring in my bed. At least someone gets to grab some rest. I stepped outside and began my morning routine. To be frank, I wasn't happy my bed was being used by anyone other than me. Never mind that others may have dozed on it while I was working, and that the old witch most certainly used it prior to my moving in, but still. And yet, to be fair, with what he'd been through, no doubt he was tired. And then I realized he'll probably be ravenous when he wakes. So, time to prepare food for two, which also means he spends more time here. As I got back to work, I thought about my thoughts about this prolonged visit, and how much I didn't like it. The intrusion into my life here was something I simply disliked, but I'd manage today. Be polite, be professional, be sympathetic, but gently insistent that he leave. I didn't get my chance to be all that for several hours, but he did finally emerge looking much calmer and relaxed. And, as predicted, he was hungry. I thought it'd be a great opportunity to hear his story, or at least the reasons behind his story. After all, I already knew where he'd been when things went bad. I wanted to know the why. It took nothing to get him talking. I started to pry and he just opened up. I don't believe I've properly introduced myself last night. Cornelius McTwitter, physician to the town of High Rannoch. Pleased to make your acquaintance. My apologies for the state I was in last night, completely unprofessional on my part, and to think it was all from my attempt to purchase a skeleton, reanimated skeleton, no better kind to have in a medical office. I can have it point out to my patients the parts of the body affected when dealing with medical issues. By the way, I noticed you seem to be lacking a reanimated skeleton. I agreed that I didn't possess one. He nodded in acknowledgement. In fact, I don't see that you have much of an establishment at all. No books, no laboratory equipment. How do you properly examine someone's urine without a laboratory? I don't see the need. For instance, I cured you of your afflictions and didn't need to use any equipment. And you have no leeches. How can you balance humors without bleeding a patient? I just smiled and said, again, I cured you without them. He looked indignant. But certainly you just got lucky, or I was already on the mend. I was getting testy. You were on your way to becoming a zombie because you interrupted a necromancer in the middle of a magical spell, and his Igor handed you a potion that was a poison that you drank. Now, really, that's too much. I mean, yes, I did go to see the gentleman, and he did look busy, but how else do you arrange to purchase a reanimated skeleton? It's not like he consigns them through bits and bobs. That gentleman is a vampire. Oh, pish. Nonsense. Vampire indeed. That was vampire venom you just drank. He scoffed. Probably something completely innocuous, like a wildflower root. Witches have all sorts of scary-sounding names for not scary things. Right. I was done. Well, I'm glad to see you have an appetite again, so if you don't mind, I do have things I need to tend to, like cleaning up little vomit people footprints. And I'm sure your clinic needs its doctor back. Oh, yes, didn't realize it was getting on in the day. What do I owe you? Since these were more serious conditions, I increased my price. 30 silver for each cure, 60 total. The lunch I threw in for free. The hours of scrubbing my cottage clean of the ravages of last night's chaos would help me release my rage at his ignorance. He didn't blink as he laid the money on the table. Right, a very good day to you. And with that, he left. And I breathed a sigh of relief. Episode 8. Spring, Week 4, Rest episode. A poem for Pip. 2 days. If anyone ever asks if things can get messy working as a witch, not only is the answer yes, but I know how messy. The answer is 2 days worth of scrubbing, soaking, mopping, scraping, and airing. Vomit people, well, I'm sure, are quite lovely. They are tremendously messy and stinky. As predicted, the cleaning worked my anger out over the doctor's atrocious attitude to my work and the cures, both of them, I effected. Okay, maybe not completely over it, but at least I can think of him as a difficult patient and not as someone to be shunned. No doubt, at some point, a patient of mine will reject my efforts or not have a cure within their own time frame and go to the doctor instead. I just hope they're prepared to have their urine examined. I have to admit that still makes me chuckle. Like that's gonna tell you anything. And the bleeding thing. Keep more of your bits on the inside, I say, rather than feed leeches. Oh well, each to their own. Anyway, it feels good to finally have things clean and smelling good again. I realize it's part of the job dealing with magical maladies, but still. Maybe I could ask for a cleanup fee. Or not. After all, I still have a mess I'll need to handle at some point in the future. That meeting I promised of that weird three-armed Igor and his Marther, the vampiric necromancer, named Count. Although that's probably just his title, just like mine's Witch. I wonder what his real name is. Probably best not to ask. He'd want me to reveal mine, and that's just not going to happen. I didn't give a specific date for it. Maybe that would delay it indefinitely? Watch. Someday, an hour or two after sundown, they'll show up on the grounds. Best not to think that again and tempt fate. However, if it happens, I'll just deal with it. Of course, it's easier being brave here, where the cottage and the grounds are either living things or connected to something far more powerful than I can comprehend. Trusting in that, I go to bed, exhausted from my cleaning efforts, wiped from working through my emotions, but enjoying the smell of clean, and wake to the morning smells of spring on the breeze. The sun just rising, the familiar sounds outside, the enfolding warmth of a slept-in bed whose tendrils gently try to lull me back to sleep. In a word, normal. It's tempting to close my eyes again and give myself a sleep-in day, but a thought struck me regarding my reagents, and I'm looking forward to putting it into practice, and that, while I might be able to do while lying in bed, head on pillow, warm blanket wrapped around me against the morning chill. With the sun shining down, the day well underway, I guess I needed that extra dose. But enough sleeping, sleepyhead. Time to get doing. And so I did. And with my morning routine out of the way, it's time to... What's that on the mantelpiece? A basket? How did a basket get there? Did Dr. Know-It-All sneak in here and drop it off as an apology for being insufferable? I mean, it'd be nice if that were the case and he was truly sorry and all, but how would he have gotten it in here without my knowing? What a mystery. I suppose I should look for a note. This is what the note said. Dear sweet bestie, hello pen pal and bestie. I love making hearts. I'm glad you like them. I am sending you a few helpful reagents. First vial, coffee weed. 1-star plant. Smells like coffee, serve warm with honey. Smoke for headache, crush for added energy, boil and drink. This is a garden harvest. The second vial, skeleton dust. 2 stars, magic, good for teeth, bones, and hair. Third vial, vampire venom. 3 stars, animal, good for curse, pain, and mood. I had 48 hours fighting for those last 2, so I wanted to hopefully spare you the time. I have 3 ducks. Do you like ducks? Tick box for yes, and tick box for no way. Your friend forever, Pip. Oh, it's from Pip. This is a pleasant surprise. And there's something called coffee weed, a bit of honey, a bit of tea, her favorite, some skeleton dust, some vampire venom, and 3 chocolate chunk cookies. Strange. I just dealt with an ailment using those last 2. Is it possible she's more here and less not here? She likes asking questions. This time it's about ducks, so maybe I should ask something and see if she's experiencing the same things I am. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's first brew up her tea and add the honey, sounds yummy, and take things one step at a time. Let's see. Maybe a bit of a to-do list. In no particular order. Number 1, enjoy tea. Number 2, figure out how to divide up the cookies. They look delicious, so I bet others will enjoy them as much as I will. Number 3, catalog my reagents, including this new one. Number 4, thank Pip properly. Number 1 is easy. Tick. Number 2, I'd like some cookie. They look so good, but I bet Mouse Eye would like some, and a piece should go into the spirit house. Ooh, as should a spot of this wonderful tea. So 1 for me, 1 for Mousy, and then the house makes 3. Tick. Number 3, I'm going to organize my reagents by what they cure with a division in those lists for location. For instance, for mood reagents, I currently have 2, so I'll list them on the mood page like this. So mood, Wigfish 3 stars in Meltwater Loch, and then Songberries 1 star in Glimmerwood Grove. I figure the most important attributes of any reagent is what are its efficacies. So seeing that is a better way to organize a reagent list than most any other way. Of course, this being totally untried, it may be a bunch of work that ends up being a waste, but I figure I'll try it, have a bit of fun as I do it, maybe enlist Mouse Eyes as help, and see how it works out. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. But before I do that, I need to focus properly on my note back to Pip. And to do that, I need to sip on some more tea, take a bite of this cookie, oh my, it's so good, and compose something appropriate. I think I'll compose a bit of a poem. It's something I've been thinking about doing, so maybe I'll share my first one with her, and include a bit of wild rose since it's growing so nicely in its plot. Okay, to compose, some ideas like being here, yet not here, and seeing the sky and wondering if we see the same thing. So my note that I wrote to Pip says this. Hi Pip, thank you so much for all these gifts. I'm enjoying the tea and a cookie as I write this. Mouse Eye, his mouth full of cookie, also says thank you, although it sounds more like meow, meow. I'm including some wild rose. It's growing next to the cottage and smells so nice. Do you have wild rose where you are? I'm not sure how I feel about ducks. It looks like you like them. Here's my first poem. I hope you like it. The cloud that I see, white, fluffy, free, I wonder, can it be that you see it too? Or is it only me? It carries smiles from me to you across miles and miles. Your friend forever, Sweet. Not bad. And now I think I'm not going to do much. This witch needs her rest. Episode 9. Spring, Week 5, Cure episode. An involuntary foraging trip. I can feel the season coming into its own. That first fresh breeze promising warmer weather in the heat of summer is long past. The feeling of nature waking up is something I treasure. Funny how things can change so quickly. A change in residence, a definite increase in responsibilities, learning so much in such a short period of time. And yet there's other things that take their time. A change in season, the growth of a tree, even the movement of clouds, and just how easy it is to miss. I feel like becoming a witch has made me even more aware of all these things, all these changes, fast and slow. And the really funny part is that the best way to notice these changes is to be still. While I can easily keep myself busy doing, I find I prefer not doing. It's been a bit of an exercise keeping my doing and not doing balanced because both are needed. I find I do because not doing ends. And when my doing is done, I'm back to not doing. It's a bit weird, and I don't know if I'm making sense to anyone, other than to myself, of course. I think. But it feels good to just sit and observe. My mind does wander while I'm sitting, whether in the cottage by the spirit house or outside in the increasingly warm and green spaces, but that's okay too. It floats along and wanders into all sorts of mental crevices, nooks, even the occasional rabbit hole, but eventually comes back and quiets a bit before dashing off again. Watching my mind meander around is like watching a restless child. It's okay so long as it's home for meals. It's been a busy couple of weeks. I've done my best to rest and recuperate, to keep myself happy and healthy, while also being at my best when the need arises. I've enough silver to make a new purchase. I'm sure Bob will be happy to see me in a full purse. Just kidding. Bob is a wonderful person and a smart shopkeeper. I hope to be viewed the same way someday. Anyway, that will be something to do later this week. Or not, we'll see. For now, I'll sit and breathe. And now, some time passes. At some point, something that I started feeling grew in my awareness, something not exactly wrong, but also not quite right. Mouse-eye, do you feel something too? There's nothing so affirming as someone else mentioning feeling something strange without prompting. Yeah, any idea what it is? Mm-mm. Do you want to scout around a bit, see if something's amiss? As an answer, he just closed his eyes. Maybe he didn't say, "Must I?" with words, but he yelled it with actions. So I shrugged and decided to walk around. The sky was clear, the sun shining, nothing out of the ordinary, except for two things. The bees were less active and sticking closer to the hive, and things felt a little gloomier than they should have. It was all subtle and easy to miss, but taken together, something was up. I decided to stay close to the cottage, which wasn't the idea I'd had for, not today, but maybe tomorrow. I'd taken 2 weeks to clean up and rest up after difficult cases, which meant I'd spent less time than maybe I should have looking for reagents. And I had wanted to spend some time in Glimmerwood Grove. I guess that would have to wait. Time passed. The gloom, if anything, deepened. I did my best to sit and be patient. Me pacing the cottage would do me no favors. The day progressed and still nothing. The sun set and still nothing. The sun set? No. If a certain necromancer is coming to visit, at least we'll have that out of the way. Mouse-eye, you don't think it's the necromancer, do you? He stirred. If it is, at least we're here. The cottage is safe. Oh, good. I would have preferred something like, no, it's not an immortal, blood-sucking, death magic-using creature whose only weaknesses are sunlight, wooden stakes to the heart, and raw garlic. So we wait. And wait. And a knock on the door. Mistress, are you at home? Gulp. Mouse-eye quickly ran behind the spirit house. Great. I called out in response, mostly to delay actually opening the door. Igor, is that you? Yes, mistress. The master has need of your services. A vampire needs a witch? Well, why not? As I reached for the door, Mouse-eye jumped on my shoulder, which caused me to jump out of my skin. As I recovered my composure, Mouse-eye said, "It's safe." Good. Although scaring the stuffing out of me, we could have skipped that bit. I opened the door. Igor was standing, all three hands gathered together respectfully in front of him, his perpetual smile warm and reassuring. Mistress, please allow me to introduce my master, Count von Rannoch. A figure standing behind Igor began to move forward. I expected black and red velvet, a cape, a large necklace depicting a wolf or a bat, all on a towering figure with a smile featuring prominent canines. What emerged was less. He was pale, that fit the usual depictions, but he was short and stout, wearing a shirt and pants that you might see a laborer wear. There was nothing regal or scary here, or at least in view. Mouse-eye's trembling kept me alert. The Count walked up to me, took my hand, and kissed the back of it. Count von Rannoch, pleased to make your acquaintance. And please call me Richard. One's name disappears when buried by titles and honors. Tell me, what may I call you? I could feel a gentle push to give him my real name, that here was a friend who would safeguard secrets as if they were his own. So I took a second to shrug that off. Sweet, Please, call me sweet." He smiled. It was, for the most part, accepting, but for the remaining part, and echoed by his eyes, not happy that I'd given the answer I had. I recovered my senses some more. "To what do I owe the visit, Richard?" He recovered quickly, too. "Would you mind if we sit down before I regale you with my tale of misfortune?" I was getting comfortable with the situation, and that meant I didn't mind taking a minute to ask the cottage before answering. Count Richard might take offense, but I was caring less and less. I focused on the cottage and mentally asked for permission. It was granted, so I let the vampire and his assistant in. The Count flashed a quick, satisfied grin. "Isn't it funny? Sunlight is unhealthy for me, but I can enjoy a lovely fire. Thank you for allowing me in." The Count was once again being charming, but I wasn't fooled. Something was going on. "Please take a seat. May I offer you some tea?" "Tea? Delighted." "And for you, Igor?" "Yes, please." With the social niceties out of the way, it was time to find out what was going on. "You mentioned a tale of misfortune, Richard?" He sipped and savored before responding. "Wonderful cup of tea, thank you. So, yes, why I'm here. As you probably know, being a witch that I am, differently alive than others. In addition, my interest in exploring the boundary between this world and the one where the deceased travel to requires the use of silver. Did you know its qualities of calling forth the energies of the moon?" "Yes? Yes, of course you do. Well, what no one mentions in any of the tomes I have you been in my library? You've seen my collection of books. That silver can irritate not just skin, but the entire body, and, what's more, the esoteric body. So I have a need for a cure, and that brings me to you." On the surface, it sounded good, sincere, someone needing help. But couldn't that help come from, I don't know, the Igor with the fully stocked laboratory? So I called him on it. "It's unfortunate, but my skills are centered around necromantic arts, not allergies." With a slight, perhaps even disapproving glance at the Count. "Igor," the Count replied, "we've discussed this. This is not an allergy. It is a chronic condition from overexposure. As well you know from the summoning of a skew." Then he glanced at me. Sorry. You wouldn't know. A skew is a minor demon. I consulted it in regards to my affliction, and it assured me you could effect a cure." "Right. Please enjoy some more tea. I'll just be a second." I got up and began consulting the old witch's book. As I came up with a plan, I heard the Count remark on my spirit house. "It's lovely how you honor your ancestors, the grounds. What does that symbolize?" Without thinking, I replied, "The cottage and grounds." "Is that so?" I cringed. I'm not sure what he's hunting for, but apparently he just found something helpful. I turned my mind back to the condition at hand. Silver burn, definitely a thing, and not an easy nut to crack. Thankfully, I already had one reagent, ghost goo. For the other, I had a few choices. I think I muttered Glimmerwood Grove as I read. "Will your hunt for reagents take you to the grove?" I heard the Count ask. I just nodded. He paused for a minute. "Lovely place, full of reagents." I nodded again. "And I'm in no hurry for a cure." Did he know I had been thinking of going there? Was that demon the one who told him? I had been thinking about a reagent gathering. Expedition is far too grand a word, but wonderful. That sounds productive and relaxing. I heartily endorse it. Yes, and I insist you take Igor with you. He'll cook and clean for you, whatever you want. Isn't that right, Igor?" Was there a pause? "Yes, master. Of course, master." The Count smiled. "Wonderful! It's all decided. And of course you don't want to wait, do you, sweet?" I just nodded again. "Right, gather your things and off you go." And I did, and I did. It was only after I was halfway there that I realized I hadn't actually wanted to leave at all. I was so frustrated, angry, disgusted in myself, I wanted to scream, but I also wanted to talk to Mouse Eye, but with Igor around, I knew Mouse Eye wouldn't appear. So I stopped to go to the bathroom, asked Igor to keep going, and said I'd catch up in a minute. I squatted down in a place so I could make sure Igor kept on walking. After I made sure he wasn't around, I whispered, "Mouse Eye? Clever at using the I need to pee trick." "Thanks. It helps to know I've got my brain back." I felt like I was pushed out the door. You were, but not by the vampire. I think the cottage got you out of there." That stopped me. Seriously? "He wanted in, and the cottage let it happen. I think whatever happens there, it'll be safer for you out here. Focus on the potion. He wasn't making that up. And when you feel ready, then we'll head back. Hopefully, things will be resolved. And in our favor." Note to self. All this hoping that things will work out is for the birds. Or the snails. For something and or someone who's not me. I'd prefer certainty, especially here and now. Anyway, I finished my fake pee stop and caught up to Igor. He didn't look happy, so I asked if there was anything the matter. "Kind of you to ask. I don't wish to say anything against the master, but his conduct lately has been in violation of the Igor code, and this excursion, begging your forgiveness, is right up there. I'm supposed to care for master's needs, not simply to ensure you..." "That I what, Igor? Come to harm?" "Oh, no, mistress. No harm is to come to you." "Then why are you here?" "Loose lips think sips. I've already said too much." "He wanted into the cottage. He's looking for something." "The entity that is the cottage and the grounds. He became aware of it with the last switch." "And so what? You'll cure him of his allergy." "Ha! Allergy. What self-respecting necromancer has a silver allergy?" "Shameful." "I will?" "Yes, mistress, you will. Not because of any threat, but because in your heart of hearts, you heal. It's what you do. It's what you want to do. And I'm here to help you do it. Just maybe take longer than strictly necessary." "And yet you don't want to help me. You want to help the Count." "That, mistress, is my burden to bear. For now." And that was that. Whether I liked it or not, I had Igor helping me find reagents in the forest while a vampiric necromancer attacked my cottage. And my cottage, by the way, wanted me out of the way. I had no idea how I was supposed to feel about all of this, so I decided to get to work gathering so that when I felt the time was right, I'd be able to go home right away. "Okay, Igor, I can't say I understand any of what's going on, but you are right that I'm not interested in whatever magical battle of wits is happening. So I'll focus on what I can do, which is focus on making potions and all that involves, and let everything play out as it will. I'm going to trust that everything works out okay. So let's get to the grove and set up camp. It's getting late and I'd really like to hit the ground running tomorrow. How's that sound?" "Like a well-thought-out plan, mistress." And some time passes. That plan worked well for us, although there was a fair bit of luck involved. You see, we finished making our way to the grove, the trees all rising high over our heads, branches outstretched, nighttime animals making their nighttime noises. Funny how scary they can be heading to the hollow and yet so soothing in the grove. We found a clearing and set up camp by a couple of big rocks that were the start of a couple of low ridges, forming a bit of a valley. It was tight, that valley, so we set up at the mouth of it. It also allowed for some fresher air. Inside the valley, the air didn't move much and had an unpleasant earthy smell, and that's where we spent the first night. When we awoke the next morning, we decided to move camp. Quietly, because the rocks we camped next to weren't rocks. They were feet. Giants' feet. I don't know how we avoided being trampled or otherwise rolled on. Thankfully, the giant is a heavy sleeper. Once we had the new camp set up, I went back and carefully picked foot fungus, a powerful reagent. I tried to not sneeze and was almost successful, but the giant slept through it all. I do not look forward to contending with an awake giant. Fingers crossed, I never do. Over the course of a couple of days, we gathered pretty much everything I wanted to bring back. We put our new camp near a copse of nurse willows where I harvested surgeon sap. Apart from being a convenient camp for ourselves, we also got to watch as a couple of animals, wounded from, I suppose, territorial fights, battles with predators, and who knows what else, came to lick the trees and effect their own healing. One of these animals was a boar. It was in really bad shape, not even being able to reach a tree. It just laid down a few meters away, looked piteously at them, and whimpered. I was able to gather a bit of additional sap and cautiously fed it. As it lay there waiting for the sap to work its magic, I gave it some pets and was rewarded with some of its hair. Hair of the boar was another reagent I'd hoped to gather. Near a quick flowing creek, as we gathered water, there was some splashing as something tried to avoid us. At first I thought it was a fish. Turns out it was Scramble Bramble. If it hadn't been for its trying to get away, I never would have known it was there. I managed to catch a bit. On a prior trip here, I'd encountered some pixies near some songberry bushes. I headed that way again. The pixies were once again gathered there. It was a bit awkward, with plenty of not very quiet mutterings about how I cheated at caber toss. I tried to put on a friendly face. I guess it worked because I was able to talk to a pixie who was, on the face of it, personable. Or should that be pixieable? How about we go with civil? With her help, we gathered songberries. They're just so good for mood. And she directed me to shield cap. Several pixies were trying on different mushroom caps for fit and comfort. And color. Getting the right shade was a big part of the discussions there. I was about to head back to the pixie gathering when I heard the strangest rhythm. Tap, tap, shuffle. Tap, tap, pounce, grope. Peering around a few trees, I saw these weird pink toads gathered in small groups, dancing. It was funny to watch, and they did it with such solemnity, I had to guess it was some sort of, I don't know, a courtship dance maybe? Like trying to impress the other toads with their big jumps, maybe? Dancing skills? Ability to get down and boogie? But a serious boogie, anyway. Anyway, I watched for a good long while. At some point, it finished, and I was able to collect mucus off overhanging leaves and I can't believe I'm writing this, their poop. Just call me the Princess Toad Latrine Girl. I did eventually return to the pixies. I noticed everyone was drinking something warm and rich smelling. When I asked what it was, I was told it was coffee cap, that it grew over that away, and that I could go get some now because it was time for me to leave. Although I'd hoped to get some more rat spit before heading off, I suppose I should be happy that they merely told me to leave rather than curse me. So, coffee cap? Yes. Rat spit? No. Like I said, it had been a couple of days. They were good, productive days. Igor kept the camp running well, and in fact is quite the chef. I don't think I've eaten as well out here in the forest as I have in my time in the cottage. Oh, well, you know, he said when I complimented his culinary skills. It's always satisfying to cook for more than just yourself. The master, doesn't eat anything. He provides for his own nourishment. Though I'm having fun cooking for such an appreciative mistress. At some point, after another fulfilling meal, I found myself asking about the old witch's interest with the Count. It wasn't something I was privy to. It is a bit odd to seek out the company of a vampire, or a necromancer, or both, but she did. The master, I think he enjoyed the company. The dead, near-dead, pseudo-dead, sorta-dead. Did you know necromancers have 50 words for dead and death? Anyway, they aren't much for conversation, and it's above my station to speak to the master, though I think he got lonely on occasion. He may even have lost a bit of his passion for the work. Thus my fear he'd abandon it and leave with her. So, along with hiding her letter to him, I kept giving her a travel guide to the Imperial City. I hope she's enjoying it there. Well, that explains a lot. I was going to ask more about that when I got a feeling. A request to return, and not to wait. I took a minute to pretend to relieve myself so that I could Ask Mouseye if he'd felt anything. He had. I strode confidently to Igor and let him know that I felt it was time to head home. He took one look at me, said, "Yes, mistress," and we quickly packed up and started back. Just like our walk out, it was dark heading back. I was certainly walking faster heading back home, or what I hope was still my home, partly out of a desire to be in the cottage again and partly out of trepidation of what I'd find. The cottage was quiet and still as we approached. Light did glow out from the windows, and smoke and the occasional ember rose out of the chimney. Nothing out of the ordinary. I opened the door and found everything as I'd left it. Nothing broken, no mess, no disorder. Sitting at my table was the vampire, Richard, looking at me. Not violent, not angry, no animosity showing, just abashed, I think. Amused, even sheepish. "Good evening, Mr. Streetwater. I owe you an apology and an explanation. First, the explanation. When I became aware of the spirit that resides here, and I believe you've begun calling it also not here, I felt I had to explore the phenomenon. What I didn't realize was the extent of that energy, nor of its desire for its privacy and ability to defend itself from unwanted intrusion. I've already tendered my apologies to the entity, and now I do so to you. Frankly, I had thought that you, an unassuming girl, wouldn't be aware of the energies and that I could take advantage of that. I was wrong. I'm truly sorry to have disturbed you and this place." "And why are you telling me this?" "Because that was part of the agreement I made to cease hostilities. To be blunt, in the battle of wills between myself and the entity, I was suddenly beset by the most noxious, odious little creatures I've ever encountered. Vicious little things." "They're probably the result of poisoning the doctor." "Really? Comeuppance too in the mix. Fitting, I suppose." I just stood there, watching, listening, processing. "However, I would be most obliged if you could prepare that cure for Silverburn. I have money." I glanced at the spirit house. Mouseye peered out from it, all smiles. He gave me a sign that it was okay to brew it up. It meant having Richard in my house for longer than I wanted, but I did quickly brew it. He applied it to his hands, then drank the rest. A look of relief crossed his face. "Thank you. Here is your fee, and please know I meant you no harm." And with that, he headed for the door. Before he left, he looked over his shoulder. "I cleaned up as best I could. Would you like Igor to give it a once-over? The mess those little creatures can spread is nauseatingly impressive. Please excuse any mess I missed. Now, allow me to bid you adieu." I sat down in my chair and looked up at the spirit house again. "Will you tell me what happened?" The feeling I got back was one of comfort, security, warmth, the feelings a child might get from a parent who won't share the events of the day but gives reassurance instead. I sat and watched the fire slowly die down to embers, then out, leaving me in the comforting dark of the cottage. Episode 10. Spring, Week 5, Rest Episode, Miss Bogfire. Quiet, blessedly quiet. The crackle of the occasional stick popping open in the hearth as I sit and sip and relax. It seems like life has become either frantically busy as I run around gathering necessary reagents, dealing with the environs where I have to go to find them, or the blessed peace in between cases. I know I'm needed here. Every time someone needs help and I'm able to provide it demonstrates just how much I'm needed. But what I want is more of this: peace, solitude, harmony. On the flip side, the last couple of weeks has been full of time off. Aside from cleaning up endless messes, I suppose I should be grateful that the last encounter didn't end up with my place a total wreck. Who would have thought a vampiric necromancer could use a mop? Thank you, cottage, for not laying that cleaning job on me. And also, on the flip side, I've been doing quite nicely for myself monetarily. I think it's about time that I added something to the cottage, or something that will assist me as I go about the gathering of potion makings. And for that, it's to the village I go. I'm sure Bob will have just the thing. even if I'm not sure what that thing is yet. I gathered up a few things and prepared to head out. As I stopped in front of the spirit house to let it know my intention to head off, I spotted Mouse Eye in what has become his place in the structure. He opened an eye. "Heading out?" "Yes, to the village, and I think you should come too. Visibly." He just looked at me. "Must I?" "I think it would be good for you. I know you like to watch and observe, mostly out of sight, but I think you should consider being visible at times too." He didn't move. He just laid there and looked at me. Sigh. "Fine. Yes, Mouse Eye, you must." He took his turn to sigh. "Okay." As we headed to High Rannoch, Mouse Eye on my shoulder, I talked. About how well things were going, about all the things we'd seen and done, about all the adventures we had. Mouse Eye kept up an unenthusiastic to my observations. So I stopped talking, and instead let my mind wander to an imagined stock of goods at Bob's shop. Nothing really inspired my excitement, even when I dreamed of impossible things like trees that cut themselves down, chopped themselves up and stacked themselves as firewood, or a scullery that magically did all the dishes. Well, I'm sure actually seeing Bob's inventory will cure me of needing to dream of something worthwhile. "Mouse Eye, what do you think I'll buy today?" Maybe this wasn't the best idea. Anyway, I'm not letting a certain someone's attitude ruin my day. I'm going shopping, and that's that. Unwilling companion or no. It's hard to ignore the sorry state of the boundary between High Rannoch and the rest of the world, try as I might. I hope those large timbers aren't actually needed to keep things out. And I really hope that because I'm outside those walls. Ha! Me, first line of defense against bandits, monsters, and who knows what else. But, to be fair, one necromancer might be less inclined to cause trouble. Those thoughts got me thinking. Maybe I am a bit of a buffer between things out there and in here. But before I could take that thought any further, I arrived at Bits and Bob's. Bob, as usual, was attentive, patient, and very willing to show off his stock. But as I looked at various items, nothing seemed to fit. Nothing was quite right. My anticipation of buying something was quickly draining away, and I found myself wanting to tearfully apologize for wasting his time. Which is when Bob asked the fateful question. "Have you considered expanding the areas you search for reagents?" That stopped me. Yes, that was the thing. I was suddenly transported to traveling to the Cloud Isles and Madcap's balloon. That would be amazing. That would be... "I have a friend, bit of an eccentric, but can weave wood like nothing I've ever seen. He makes boats, calls them coracles. They're not much more than a bit of circular dryness on top of boggy bogginess, but one of those would mean you could navigate through Blastfire Bog. Not that I'd suggest that to most anyone, but then again, you're not most anyone." The bog? Well, it's not flying, that's for sure. But going out in a small boat to explore a new area, gathering new and unique items? Yes. Sold. I'm in. How exciting. Bob and I traded items. He got 70 silver, and I got a paper to take to the coracle maker, Kunk, to show I'd paid properly. So exciting! I couldn't wait to have my first sail, or row, I suppose. Coracles don't have a mast, or a rudder, or a keel. But what my boat will have is a fine rower. I stepped out of the shop with a pep to my step. The sun was a little brighter, the flowers a bit more colorful, Why is someone walking at me? Why, I think he was in the herbology school, and I'm sure I don't know his name. "Hey, loser, what are you doing here? You quit, so go back home to your mommy." Ah, well, isn't this delightful? "Sorry, do I know you?" "Yeah, you know me. You're such a failure that you don't even remember who was in your class." Okay. Tongue, stay put. Feet, start moving. Eyes, look away. Mouth, oh, why won't you listen? Sorry, I have to go, so see you. He grabbed my arm. And I see a rodent, a pathetic mouse on your shoulder. That's your familiar? Ha ha, what a joke. I bristled. I stopped and turned. Take your hands off of me. Why, you going to cry? No, but you will. I didn't say that. Mouse Eye did. And then he jumped from my shoulder onto my attacker's neck and then slid down under his shirt. What happened next was that the boy let go of me and clasped his chest as he screamed in pain. A small red circle started to appear on his shirt. As the boy turned to run away, crying, Mouse Eye slid out from the shirt cuff and jumped back onto my shoulder. It's not like I bit him all that hard. It's all about placement. Time to leave before anything more happens. And moving on. Blastfire Bog extends from the edge of Glimmerwood Grove Forest and off to the edges of the Moonbreaker Mountain Range. It's a huge expanse that houses all sorts of unique life, including bog goblins, which includes at least one who tried, and failed, to sell Bob inactive fen-toad scurf, and who also tried, and succeeded, in cursing him. And here I was off to see someone named Kunk. I guessed I was about to have dealings with an industrious goblin. Hopefully I wouldn't end up with a curse of my own. As we walked to the bog, Mouse Eye and I talked about the encounter in the village, and about changes, the very same topic I'd been musing on earlier. After the encounter with Richard, Count von Rannoch, and how the land had defended itself, I felt little fear about being waylaid by a jealous boy, or, if he has friends, a pack of them. I didn't feel invincible, but I did feel much safer than I would have even a couple of weeks ago. Oh, how fast things can change. After a while, we found the piece of shore, if there can be a shore to a bog, where Kunk has his workshop. As we approached it, we called out to let Kunk know we were approaching. There's no sense in staying quiet if that causes a startled, curse-wielding someone to start hurling magic at you before getting a chance to think. Kunk. How to describe him? Start with what you think a bog goblin looks like, then add unsettling, clever eyes and a bearing that gets you thinking that if bog goblins have royalty, here before you stands a likely family member. Even his smell, while strong, wasn't putrid. Exactly. Maybe he bathed in the bog recently. He came out of his shack, cautious, wary, but curious. His eyes were clearly taking us in. Yeah, what? He half yelled. I just bought a coracle. I've paid Bob. Here's the paper. I held it up to show him. Come! Kunk turned around and entered his shack. I did my best to prepare for the enclosed version of Kunk. The shack wasn't much beyond his coracle workshop. Strips of wood were all over, some bits woven already, others being prepared. He also had a large pot over the fire. The odor was some sort of adhesive or perhaps sealant. Maybe this was how he kept water out. In a corner was some straw and a blanket. Kunk had made his way to a bare patch of his work table. He slapped it. Show! I put the paper down and stepped back. He took it, made at least a show of reading it. Whether he could actually read it is another question. Smelled it, then said, Okay, follow. We went out the other door and into what must have been his storage area. He had a few boats leaning up against trees. Pick! They all looked the same to me, so I asked for some help. Which one is best? All best. Okay, thanks for the help. As I started looking at each one, he followed. I didn't need to see him to know he was close, if you know what I mean. As I looked at one, he said, Big, carry lots, paddle hard. Now that was useful. I hadn't considered that the size of the boat would affect the difficulty to use it. I looked at another. Small, carry little, paddle easy, lift easy, use small, maybe best. And that's how I ended up with Miss Bogfire, the smallest, finest, most nimblest coracle on the Blastfire Bog seas. Kunk carried it easily to a small dock. Dock here, okay. And there was another thought I hadn't even contemplated yet. Where to keep it when it wasn't in use. But wouldn't he want some compensation for keeping it at his dock? I can keep it somewhere so that it's not in your way. He looked at me for a second, then said, "Better here. Water up, water down, coracle here, no coracle gone." I started to give that a thought when he added, "You witch, yes?" I said I was. "Help Bob, yes?" I said I had. "Keep here, better." I thanked him, but asked, "Did you give Bob the kludgy mouth?" He looked shocked. "Me? No. Stupid, greedy goblin. Leavin' bog. You sell, you meet." I was taken back to when I'd wanted to hear how a certain vampire wasn't going to be a problem. I found myself wishing for the same basic thing, only replacing vampire with goblin. But I was also feeling brave, so I decided it was time for a maiden voyage. I'd heard, at some time or other, that when big sailing ships are launched, they are christened using some sort of bubbly wine. Having nothing like that on hand, I scooped a handful of bubbling bog water, dribbled it onto the gunwale, and had a quick naming ceremony. I also asked that if she ever felt like sinking that she do so without me on board. Kunk chuckled. With that done, I set off. It took a few minutes to get used to it. A circular boat doesn't cut through the water so much as unwillingly running it over, so going forward was an effort. Spinning in a circle, however, it was brilliant at doing that, even when I really didn't want to. Like I said, it took a bit to get used to, but I did get going and set off across the water, and the islets, and the trees, and reeds, and... Mousei? How am I supposed to navigate back home? Everything looks the same. He just yawned. I watch. So you can get me back from wherever? I didn't want to go too far out, initially, but as I found a rhythm, I just kept going deeper in. After a while, I pulled up on a small dryish island. It felt good to hop off, stretch my legs, they were folded under me during my paddling, and looked around. It was very open, very bright. Nothing taller than large scruffy bushes got in the way of the sky. The air hummed with insects of all sorts. Happily, none of them were hungry for witch's blood. I remembered an addendum to the old witch's notes about reagents growing specifically and only in the bog. On a lark, I began to dig next to where I was sitting, and found milkroot. In a minute, I had a good-sized tuber. Into the boat it and we went. Rest time was over. Off we went in a different direction and came to another small islet. This one covered in mushrooms and other low growth. It looked the perfect place for fairy folk to gather. And I was right. Their dust, quite glittery, was all over. It took a bit to gather some up, pinch by pinch, but I did eventually have a nice amount. It was starting to get later in the day, so I started heading in the general direction of back home, but I took an alternate route. As I paddled, I started hearing the unmistakable sounds of toads. I had to go look. As I paddled closer to the islet where the sounds were coming from, toads began to jump, panicked, towards me, which was really weird, until my nose picked up the indescribable reek of bog goblin. Several goblin heads suddenly rose above the grasses, toads continued to jump in all sorts of directions, including towards me, and in all the pandemonium, or perhaps toademonium, there being no pandas here, a large toad ended up in my boat and scooted under the seat. The goblins, who up to this point had been focused solely on toads, spotted me. There were grunts, screams, yells, and a couple of loud belches. One in particular looked enraged. "You, thief! Steal toads!" I started to backpedal as fast as I could. Meanwhile, most of the goblins ran to the water's edge and stopped. However, the really angry one looked around desperately, then started to grab and throw handfuls of mud at me. Goblin plus anger plus mud equals bad aim. I paddled away from there as fast as I could. After a few minutes, I felt safe enough to stop, listen, and assess. No sounds of pursuit, no crashing of angry goblins in the undergrowth or swimming my way. No sounds but for one quiet, perhaps grateful, croaking from under my seat. I peeked underneath. It peered out back. "You're safe?" It just stayed in place. "I can set you on land somewhere." Again, no movement. "I'm heading home, back to my cottage. I'm a witch, by the way, Mistress Sweetwater, at your service." It croaked. Within that croak, I swear I heard, Well, okay. Can I call you Fen short for fen toad, another croak. The meaning was more complicated, and to be honest, I didn't understand most of it, but I think part of it was acceptance. Not much happened after that, thank goodness. I was guided back home by both Mousei and Fen. There were a couple of times they argued over the best way back. I pulled up at the dock and was met by Kunk. "You meet! Ha! Have toad! Ha ha! Welcome back!" I unloaded the coracle and then went to help pull it out of the water. "You go! Goblin come! Sun go!" I thanked Kunk, then headed home. The walk back was entirely uneventful. Mousei on one shoulder, Fen on the other, not a word spoken among the three of us. When we got back, Fen found a spot outside near the spring where I collect water to live. Mousei settled back into his usual perch in the spirit house, and I brewed a lovely cup of tea and reflected again on just how fast things can change. Okay, that's the end of these episodes for today. I hope you'll hang around and listen to the next volume when it comes out, whenever it comes out. Okay. Until then, bye for now.